NASA safety at risk? 4,000 workforce cuts amid upcoming space missions. NASA staff exodus sparks serious safety concerns for future space missions as NASA and SpaceX prepare to launch another crew to the International Space Station this Thursday, a mission that would normally showcase American space program excellence. A troubling situation is unfolding behind the scenes. The space agency is currently experiencing unprecedented internal turmoil. With approximately 4,000 employees, roughly 20% of its workforce, choosing to depart amid President Donald Trump's federal spending reduction initiatives. This massive personnel drain has deeply rattled NASA leadership and ignited worries about the agency's capability to safely transport astronauts at a particularly vulnerable time when NASA has operated without permanent leadership since January, according to multiple sources familiar with the situation. But here's where it gets truly alarming. Just last week, around 300 current and former NASA officials took the extraordinary step of issuing an open letter of formal dissent addressed to Transportation Secretary Sean P. Duffy, who currently serves as NASA's acting administrator. The letter explicitly voiced serious concerns regarding agency cuts and policies that have or threaten to waste public resources, compromise human safety, weaken national security, and undermine the core NASA mission. The signatories expressed particular distress over the departure of highly skilled personnel through a voluntary separation program who are taking with them highly specialized, irreplaceable knowledge crucial to carrying out NASA's mission. Perhaps most troubling of all, they warned that NASA's current trajectory appears to disregard critical lessons learned from the Columbia disaster, a catastrophic shuttle breakup that claimed the lives of 7 astronauts. Despite this internal upheaval, NASA representatives maintain that safety remains their paramount concern and that crewed missions continue to be the agency's top priority. NASA will never compromise on safety. NASA Press Secretary Bethany Stevens emphasized in an official statement, any reductions, including our current voluntary reduction, will be designed to protect safety-critical roles. In a briefing earlier this month, leaders from NASA's Human Spaceflight Division acknowledged the disruption and its emotional toll, but reaffirmed their commitment to safety protocols. We are laser-focused on getting the work accomplished for the flight, and we try to put the distractions aside, explained Steve Stitch, who manages NASA's Commercial Crew Program. Our team is incredibly professional, incredibly dedicated. Stitch further noted that NASA leadership has attempted to address organizational changes directly with staff. We talk to our team about what's going on, the criticality of their work, he said. They know their work really affects the safety of the crew and the success of these missions. I think that's what's important to them. That's what keeps them coming to work every day. And that's what drives them. The leadership vacuum at NASA continues as Duffy serves in a dual role as both Transportation Secretary and interim NASA Administrator. This arrangement followed the White House's withdrawal of billionaire entrepreneur Jared Isaacman's nomination for the permanent position. Given congressional scheduling realities, NASA might operate without dedicated leadership for several additional months. This represents a stark contrast to Trump's first term, when the Artemis program, NASA's initiative to return astronauts to the lunar surface, received strong White House backing. Then Vice President Mike Pence, heading the National Space Council, had infused the program with urgency, framing it as a competitive race against China's space ambitions. And this is the part most people miss. The current landscape looks dramatically different. The Space Council has been completely disbanded. Meanwhile, the Artemis program has encountered significant setbacks, including multiple explosions during uncrewed test flights of SpaceX's Starship rocket, the vehicle NASA plans to use for lunar landings. Additionally, The Orion spacecraft, manufactured by Lockheed Martin and designed to transport astronauts between Earth and the Moon, has experienced heat shield complications, forcing NASA to modify flight trajectories to reduce stress on the capsule. These technical challenges have pushed NASA's timeline for returning humans to the lunar surface to 2027 at the earliest, a schedule many experts still consider optimistic. It's a concerning time for the agency, and a lot of folks in the space industry are confused, observed Mary Guenther, who heads space policy at the Progressive Policy Institute, a Washington, D.C.-based think tank. The first Trump administration made space a major priority, and they achieved a great many things. Now it seems that space hasn't just fallen down on the priority list, it's fallen off it. NASA officials counter this perception, insisting that space exploration remains a priority. Duffy, who previously served in Congress, has pledged to fulfill a commitment established during Trump's first administration, returning astronauts to the moon through the Artemis program after a half-century absence. "We're not just going back to the moon, we're going to stay," Duffy declared in a statement commemorating the Apollo 11 moon landing anniversary last week. "And from there, we set our sights on Mars. This will be a golden age of innovation, national purpose, and American dominance." However, growing concern exists that China might succeed in landing its own astronauts on the lunar surface before America's return, given the Artemis program's continued delays. Moreover, the agency's workforce reductions could create long-lasting repercussions as key leaders exit and remaining personnel harbor anxieties about their future prospects. Garrett Reisman, a former astronaut who now teaches at the University of Southern California, expressed concern that NASA employees might become reluctant to raise safety issues during a period when many feel vulnerable. "When you have an environment of fear and people are worried about losing their job, it's not conducive to honest safety reporting," he explained. "Even in good times, it's hard to get people to raise their hand with a dissenting opinion and speak up. It takes courage to do that." Another former astronaut, speaking anonymously due to lack of authorization to comment publicly, shared similar worries. "People at NASA are distracted from the top down. It's scary," they revealed. "It's the first time we're going to the moon in 50 years. And you have a workforce that's not in the game. How could they be 100% focused on the mission?" Reisman clarified that his immediate concerns don't center on the upcoming crew launches operated by SpaceX. "My concern is a long-term affect," he noted. "With diminished capabilities on NASA's side, I'm worried there's less oversight and insight, and there could be consequences down the road." Thursday's mission, representing SpaceX's 11th crew rotation to the International Space Station, is scheduled for liftoff at 12:09 p.m. from Cape Canaveral, Florida. The crew will include NASA astronauts Zena Cartman and Mike Finke, alongside Japanese astronaut Kimiya Yui and Russian cosmonaut Oleg Platonov. Do you believe NASA can maintain its safety standards despite these workforce reductions? Or is this a dangerous precedent that could lead to another space? NASA loses 20% of workforce. 4,000 employees opt for deferred resignation. In a shocking turn of events, nearly 4,000 NASA employees have chosen to leave the space agency through the Trump administration's deferred resignation program. This exodus represents a staggering 20% reduction in NASA's workforce, shrinking the agency from 18,000 to 14,000 employees. But here's where it gets controversial. The Trump administration's plan to reduce the federal workforce and implement cuts recommended by the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, has faced fierce criticism from scientists and space organizations, including the Planetary Society, led by none other than Bill Nye, the science guy. The resignations come in two waves, with 3,000 employees applying to leave during the second round, following the initial 870 employees in the first round. The full impact of this workforce reduction remains unclear, as NASA has not responded to questions about how the cuts will affect the agency. And this is the part most people miss. The administration has also proposed decreasing NASA's budget by about 24%, from nearly $25 billion to nearly $19 billion. However, the House and Senate are discussing recommendations that would maintain the agency's funding around the current budget. Amidst this uncertainty, there is a glimmer of hope. Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill Act, signed into law earlier this month, allocates nearly $10 billion in additional funding for NASA through 2032, supporting Mars missions and plans to return to the Moon. This move reverses earlier proposals to retire some NASA programs. Yet the White House's proposed budget cuts and changes at the agency continue to face opposition. In a powerful display of dissent, more than 300 current and former NASA employees signed and sent a letter known as the Voyager Declaration to Interim NASA Administrator Sean Duffy. The letter criticizes rapid and wasteful changes at the agency, including cuts to programs and research, and urges Duffy not to implement the proposed cuts, stating that they are not in the best interest of NASA. What do you think about the Trump administration's proposed cuts to NASA? Do you agree with the Planetary Society's stance that a great nation deserves a great space program? Or do you believe that the cuts are necessary for efficiency? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. NASA workforce crisis. Over 20% of employees request to leave. What's behind the exodus? A staggering revelation has emerged. Over 20% of NASA's workforce has expressed a desire to leave the agency. This significant figure, confirmed by NASA to CBS News, highlights a growing concern within one of the most prestigious space organizations in the world. Specifically, nearly 4,000 employees, approximately 3,870 to be exact, have submitted applications to exit NASA through 2 rounds of the Deferred Resignation program initiated during the Trump administration. This program was designed to allow employees to voluntarily resign while providing the agency with a means to reduce its workforce. The deadline for these applications was set for midnight on Friday, marking a critical moment for the agency. If all applications are processed, NASA's workforce, which currently stands at around 18,000, could dwindle to about 14,000. This reduction also accounts for around 500 employees who have left through regular attrition, indicating a broader trend of workforce shrinkage. Cheryl Warner, a spokesperson for NASA, emphasized the agency's commitment to safety and efficiency, stating, "Safety remains a top priority for our agency as we balance the need to become a more streamlined and more efficient organization and work to ensure we remain fully capable of pursuing a golden era of exploration and innovation, including to the Moon and Mars." This statement underscores the dual challenge NASA faces, maintaining safety while striving for ambitious goals in space exploration. The Deferred Resignation program itself was part of a broader initiative by the White House's Department of Government Efficiency, aimed at cutting costs and reducing the size of the federal workforce. In the first round of this program, about 870 employees opted to leave, while the second round saw a dramatic increase, with around 3,000 employees applying to depart. Adding to the complexity of the situation, a recent budget proposal from the White House suggested a significant funding cut for NASA, reducing its budget from approximately $24 billion to $18 billion for the fiscal year 2026, an alarming 25% decrease. This proposed cut raises questions about the future of NASA's ambitious projects and its ability to maintain its workforce. Moreover, NASA has been navigating a leadership crisis in recent months. In December, President Trump nominated billionaire private astronaut Jared Isaacman, a close associate of Elon Musk, to take the helm as NASA's administrator. However, just before the Senate was set to vote on his confirmation, Isaacman's nomination was abruptly withdrawn, leading to a public fallout between Trump and Musk. In a surprising turn of events, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy was announced as the interim leader of NASA, leaving many to wonder about the agency's direction moving forward. This situation raises critical questions. What does this mass exodus of employees mean for the future of NASA? Will the agency be able to maintain its ambitious goals in space exploration amidst budget cuts and leadership changes? We invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you agree with the direction NASA is taking? Or do you believe these changes could jeopardize its mission? Let's discuss.